The old woman only took a photo with a stranger, but she never expected the man to use her face to open more than 10 phone accounts. He not only bought countless paid games, but also maxed out all the installment payments. Knowing that the old woman could never afford the debt, and that no one would come to help her, the man even told her to die. Pushed into a desperate situation, the old woman decided to end her life by jumping in front of a train the next day. But just as she was about to jump, she suddenly noticed a small advertisement on the railway track. It said, "Don't give up on life, we will help you get revenge." So with a final bit of hope, the old woman called the number on the ad. Soon the Avenger Kim Do-gi received the call and arrived at her village. But when Kim Do-gi asked what had happened, the old woman could no longer hold back her emotions and cried as she told him everything. It turned out that a month earlier several young people came to their village to sell products. The leader of them was a man named Lu Shangji. Not only did he have a pleasant voice, but he was also extremely friendly. Soon he became close with all the elderly villagers. After the performance, Lu Shangji even paid out of his own pocket to treat all the seniors to afternoon tea. These lonely elderly people finally felt warmth and care they had not experienced for years, and this made them lower their guard. What comforted them even more was that Lu Shangji never pressured them to buy his products. Instead, he kept reminding everyone that earning money was not easy. There was no need to spend money just to save face. His thoughtful actions quickly made the elderly villagers like him. During their later conversations, Lu Shangji learned that Grandma Li was a lonely elderly woman living by herself. Because Grandma Li's financial situation was difficult, her son's company was doing poorly, and her grandson was often sick, so the father and son had not returned home for a year. After hearing this, Lu Shangji immediately pretended to kindly help Grandma Li organize her belongings. He even warmly took a photo of the two of them with his phone, secretly marking Grandma Li as his next scam target. And then came Lu Shangji's carefully prepared lottery event. This was the most important bait in his scam. He set the prize as a far-infrared therapy lamp, and promoted it by claiming the lamp could remove the smell of old age from seniors, making their children and grandchildren stop looking down on them. From a psychological perspective, this sentence perfectly hit the weakness of every lonely elderly person. They had spent their whole lives giving everything to their children, and their biggest fear was becoming a burden. So every senior there hoped they would win. But this seemingly fair lottery had been controlled by Lu Shangji from the beginning, and sure enough, the winner was the Grandma Li he had already chosen. But unexpectedly, there was a special condition before she could claim the prize. The infrared lamp would be paid for by Lu Shangji, but Grandma Li had to pay 20% tax. Hearing that she needed to pay money, Grandma Li immediately panicked. She quickly waved her hand saying she had no money and didn't want the prize. She even wanted to leave this embarrassing place as soon as possible. Seeing Grandma Li refuse the prize, Lu Shangji immediately pretended to be understanding. He lied that he could pay all the taxes for her, allowing her to take the prize without spending a single cent. But honest and simple Grandma Li never wanted to take advantage of others. No matter how much Lu Shangji tried to persuade her, she firmly refused the free prize. In the end, Grandma Li turned around and quickly left the scene. Grandma Li thought refusing the temptation meant she had escaped Lu Shangji's scam, but she had no idea this was only the first step of his bigger plan. After that day, Grandma Li never went to watch Lu Shangji's performances again. But unexpectedly, while she was selling seaweed, Lu Shangji suddenly appeared in front of her stall. This time Lu Shangji didn't mention the lottery or his products anymore. He simply and gently asked why Grandma Li had stopped watching his shows. Seeing this, Grandma Li shyly told him what was really on her mind. She admitted that she couldn't afford his products, and she felt embarrassed just watching his performances without buying anything. Hearing such simple and honest words, Lu Shangji immediately found a new opportunity. Without saying anything, Lu Shangji picked up the seaweed from Grandma Li's stall, used it as a microphone and started singing loudly on the street. His beautiful voice attracted many passers-by to stop and watch. The once quiet seaweed stall suddenly became crowded and lively. With Lu Shangji's help, Grandma Li quickly sold more than half of her seaweed. Looking at the lively scene in front of her, Grandma Li was filled with gratitude. She believed Lu Shangji was not only thoughtful but truly helping her. This kindness completely removed all her defenses, and she trusted Lu Shangji even more. To thank Lu Shangji for his help, Grandma Li specially invited him to her home, and personally cooked a table full of delicious dishes. She wanted to express her gratitude in the simplest way, but she never expected that at the dinner table Lu Shangji took out his phone. Pointing at a photo of a child on the screen, he put on a gentle yet sorrowful expression, and told Grandma Li a heartbreaking story. He lied that he had a 5-year-old son, who had been weak and sick since birth and needed constant hospital treatment, which forced him to travel everywhere for work, all just to earn medical expenses and help his son recover sooner. From a psychological perspective, this story perfectly touched Grandma Li's biggest emotional weakness. Looking at this father struggling for his child, she immediately thought of her grandson who was often sick, and her son who worked hard in the city. She developed strong sympathy and emotional connection with Lu Shangji. In her eyes, Lu Shangji was no longer a stranger, but someone just like her who worked hard for his family. This emotional connection completely led Grandma Li into Lu Shangji's trap. That afternoon, Grandma Li took out the money she had saved carefully throughout her life. It was her retirement savings kept for emergencies and never spent. Then she brought the money to Lu Shangji's stall to buy his products, hoping to use her small effort to help this struggling father overcome his difficulties. But unexpectedly, Lu Shangji deliberately refused Grandma Li's kindness while pretending to be generous. He sincerely told Grandma Li to keep her money, repeatedly saying that earning money was not easy for elderly people, and he couldn't let her spend money because of him. Looking at the logic behind this was Lu Shangji's most important trick of pretending to refuse. The more he refused, the stronger Grandma Li's guilt became, and the deeper her trust in him grew. After this series of actions, Grandma Li's trust and guilt toward him reached their peak. She believed Lu Shangji was not only kind kind but always thinking about her. He was someone worthy of all her trust. And once Lu Shangji confirmed that Grandma Li completely trusted him, he finally revealed the true purpose behind his scam. He deliberately pretended to look troubled and told Grandma Li that if she truly wanted to help him, she only needed to do one small favor for him. Then Lu Shangji followed Grandma Li back home and asked her to help apply for a credit card she couldn't understand at all. After Grandma Li finished applying for the card, Lu Shangji immediately delivered the infrared lamp to her house. He even lied that he had already paid all the taxes for her. This seemingly thoughtful gesture made Grandma Li completely lower her guard. She treated him like a member of her own family. From that day on, Lu Shangji often used going out for meals or handling business as an excuse, and asked Grandma Li to help watch over his appliance stall. Being a loyal and grateful person, Grandma Li felt she owed Lu Shangji too much, so she believed helping him look after the stall was only natural. She carefully guarded the stall every day, and even recommended Lu Shangji's products to villagers. Everyone in the village knew Grandma Li was honest and kind-hearted, so when they saw her recommendation they all took out money to buy. In this way, within a short period of time, most of Lu Shangji's products were sold out. Meanwhile, Grandma Li was still enjoying the happiness of helping someone she considered a benefactor, completely unaware that she had already become a tool helping the scammer deceive others. From a psychological perspective, Grandma Li's desire to repay kindness was completely exploited by Lu Shangji. She thought she was returning a favor, but she never realized she was helping a scammer hurt her own neighbors. At this point, Lu Shangji wanted to make Grandma Li even more loyal to him, so he would occasionally buy all of Grandma Li's seaweed, using these small favors to strengthen her trust, making Grandma Li feel that her efforts were being rewarded. Seeing this, Grandma Li was deeply moved. But what Grandma Li didn't know was that these so-called home appliances were all refurbished low-quality products Lu Shangji bought cheaply from second-hand markets. Some broke after only a few days of use, and some couldn't even work despite never being opened. They were all cheap products with no proper certification, yet the profits were unbelievably high, and all the purchasing costs were paid using the credit card Grandma Li had applied for. Even worse, Lu Shangji used Grandma Li's personal information to apply for high-value installment loans on multiple platforms. All the debts were registered under Grandma Li's name. The total amount reached 100 million Korean won. For Grandma Li, who was nearly 70 years old and had no income, this was a massive debt she could never repay in her lifetime. Breaking down the logic behind it, Lu Shangji's scam was carefully connected step by step. From emotional manipulation to precise calculation and finally exploiting personal information to steal money, every step had been carefully calculated just to drain Grandma Li of everything she had. But this carefully planned scam was completely exposed after a heavy rainstorm. That day, a sudden downpour hit the village. Lu Shangji arrived at Grandma Li's house carrying dozens of low-quality products. He lied that he was afraid the goods would get damaged by the rain and wanted to store them at her house temporarily. And kind-hearted Grandma Li agreed without hesitation. But what she never expected was that right after Lu Shangji left, a group of furious villagers suddenly showed up at her door. It turned out that all the appliances the villagers bought had serious quality problems and couldn't be used at all. Because everyone bought those products from Grandma Li's stall, they demanded that Grandma Li refund their money and pay compensation. Looking at the mountain of defective products piled inside her house, and listening to the villagers' accusations and angry complaints, Grandma Li was completely panicked. She hurriedly explained that she was only helping watch the stall, and had no idea there was anything wrong with the products, but all the transactions had been made under her name. So the villagers refused to believe her explanation. Unable to defend herself, Grandma Li fell into complete despair. Then Grandma Li rushed to Lu Shangji's stall hoping to get an explanation, but she discovered the stall had already been abandoned. Lu Shangji and his accomplices had already disappeared with the stolen money, leaving Grandma Li alone to deal with the entire disaster. With no way to find the scammers, the villagers had no choice but to call the police. After the police arrived, they immediately launched an investigation, and brought Grandma Li back to the station for questioning. But at the station, an even more devastating truth was revealed. After investigating and verifying the evidence, the police discovered that all the appliance purchase records were linked to Grandma Li, because Lu Shangji used Grandma Li's credit card to purchase the goods, and used her identity to sell the products. From a legal perspective, all the responsibility had to fall on Grandma Li. Even if the police found Lu Shangji later, it would still be extremely difficult to convict him. What crushed Grandma Li even more was that her name was attached not only to maxed-out credit cards, but also several high-interest installment loans, with the total amount reaching 100 million won, and she was the one who had to repay all of the debt. But at nearly 70 years old, she had no way to afford such a huge amount. So, out of consideration, the police suggested contacting Grandma Li's son to handle the matter. But this was exactly what Grandma Li feared the most. She knew her son's life was already difficult enough, and he was still paying for her grandson's medical expenses. She couldn't bear to place such a heavy burden on her son again, making her hard-working son carry a debt he could never repay. After leaving the police station, Grandma Li began to feel terrified, because she had always been honest and kind her whole life and now felt like the village's biggest joke. At that moment, her heart was filled with guilt and despair. She couldn't see any hope of continuing on. From a psychological perspective, Grandma Li's despair came from blaming herself for becoming a burden to her family. This guilt hurt her even more deeply than the debt itself. However, just when she was at her lowest point, Lu Shangji suddenly called her. Grandma Li originally thought he had finally realized his mistake. But the voice coming from the phone was cold and emotionless. He showed no regret at all. Instead, he cruelly gave Grandma Lee a terrible suggestion. He told Grandma Lee to quietly end her own life, saying that if she was gone she would not have to repay the debt or trouble her son. Those words became the final blow that broke Grandma Lee down. He didn't just take everything she had, he completely destroyed her courage to keep going. Grandma Lee felt like she had lost all hope. She believed she had nowhere left to turn, thinking that staying alive would only bring endless trouble to her family, feeling that giving up was the only way to escape everything. From a deeper psychological perspective, the emotions Grandma Lee had held inside for years finally burst out under the overwhelming pressure. Her tears contained the pain of being betrayed, the pressure of debt and her despair toward life. After hearing Grandma Lee's tragic experience, every member of the revenge team became furious. They had spent years walking between justice and darkness, and had witnessed countless acts of human cruelty. But Lu Shangji's group specifically targeted lonely elderly people with no support, using emotional manipulation to take everything they had, and even pushing them toward ending their own lives. This evil behavior completely crossed everyone's limit, so the team unanimously decided to accept this mission. They would make these scammers pay the price in the most complete way, letting them experience the fall from hope into despair themselves, and bring justice back to Grandma Lee and every victim. After that, On Go-eun immediately began tracking them with her technology, and quickly located Lu Shangji's group's whereabouts. She discovered they were hiding in a second-hand market buying large amounts of refurbished old electronics. A truck full of broken old appliances cost only 100,000 won, but they resold each item for 80,000 to 90,000 won, selling them specifically to innocent elderly people in rural areas. And all their purchasing costs came from the credit cards of elderly victims like Grandma Lee. They made huge profits without spending their own money, while pushing countless elderly people into debt and despair. After further investigation, On Go-eun discovered that Lu Shangji's scam was far more than just selling fake appliances. After gaining the trust of elderly victims, they would collect personal information such as their IDs and phone numbers, then hand all of that information to a phone shop owner named Yong Chil. Yong Chil would use the elderly people's information to illegally activate multiple phone numbers, and link them to expensive subscription plans and game payment services. They would even sell this information to other telecom fraud groups, creating a complete underground criminal network. Grandma Lee alone had 6 unauthorized phone numbers registered under her name, which was one of the major reasons her debt became overwhelming. From a logical point of view, this proved that Lu Shangji's scam group had already developed into a large-scale operation. Their targets were not only the elderly people's savings, but also their personal information, using it to gain even more illegal profits. At this moment, the revenge team realized, to completely destroy Lu Shangji's scam, they had to cut off this entire criminal chain first, and then deal with his accomplice Yong Chil. Only then could they stop more elderly people from being deceived. So the next afternoon, Kim Do-ji immediately headed to Yong Chil's operation warehouse. At that moment, Yong Chil was discussing with his accomplices how to exploit the newly stolen information from elderly victims to make more dirty money, completely unaware that danger was already approaching. Then Kim Do-ji walked straight into the warehouse, demanding Yong Chil immediately cancel all illegally activated phone numbers and paid plans using elderly people's information. Seeing someone come in to cause trouble, Yong Chil immediately called his men and ordered them to drive Kim Do-ji away. But his men were no match for Kim Do-ji at all. With his impressive fighting skills, Kim Do-ji quickly took down all of them in just a few moves. Then Kim Do-ji plugged a USB drive into Yong Chil's computer, and let On Go-eun operate it remotely. She canceled all the illegally registered phone numbers, and removed all the unreasonable paid subscriptions. At the same time, she copied all the victims' information, leaving evidence for future compensation claims and legal action. After finishing everything, Kim Do-ji set fire to all the elderly victims' information copies and computer equipment in the warehouse, completely cutting off the criminal network between Lu Shangji and Yong Chil, making sure they could never use elderly people's information to commit crimes again. After taking down Yong Chil, the revenge team focused all their attention on Lu Shangji and his 2 accomplices. They created a carefully planned revenge strategy to make the scammers suffer the same fate they had caused others. They wanted the criminals to experience being deceived and manipulated themselves, and fall from greed into complete despair. The next morning arrived. At this moment, Lu Shangji and his 2 partners had no idea they were already being watched. They were still preparing to head to another village and continue their scam, but their small truck had already been tampered with by the revenge team, and it suddenly broke down halfway there, leaving them stranded on a deserted country road. Seeing this, Lu Shangji immediately exploded in anger at his 2 partners, blaming them for not checking the vehicle beforehand. But just as the 3 of them were completely helpless, the slow sound of a tractor suddenly came from the distance, and the person driving it was Kim Do-ji. To make Lu Shangji and his men lower their guard, Kim Do-ji deliberately disguised himself as a simple and foolish country boy, occasionally wiping his nose, making himself look completely harmless, like an innocent farmer who had never seen the world. And just as expected, Lu Shangji and the others immediately dropped their guard after seeing Kim Do-ji's appearance, thinking he was someone they didn't need to worry about. And this became the first step of the revenge plan that followed. That is where today's story ends. I'm Matt, and I look forward to seeing you all next time.